Hello students, this is a lecture on life and works of Kalidas, which would also serve as an add-on lecture to the classical play by Kalidas titled Abhigyanshakuntalam. As a person, what we know of Kalidasa are just intelligent guesses. Like many other classical writers, we have just guesstimates based on the texts which are contemporary of his age or the texts which are modern but are relative to his own works. There are no surviving works which describe Kalidasa in the chronology or in the general social historical life. But we know that Kalidasa has been representing India's spirit, the genius, and the consciousness since his age. In fact, I would say Kalidasa also represents the romantic writings since the classical times. He has a great name among the unnamed. Well, definitely. He is one of the people of the classical times who do not take credit for what they have written. None of his texts have an inscription of his name. So he's one among the people who can be celebrated just by the name, not by the personality. There are several fables and legends related to Kalidasa. One of them, which is very famous, is the folklore of Vidyotama. Vidyotama was a prudent and ambitious lady, a princess who was looking for an intelligent prince. In her quest for the most intelligent husband, she had rejected several princes, which frustrated the people of her kingdom, who mischievously matched her with an illiterate shepherd named Kalidas. After the realization that she was married to an illiterate person, she frustratingly asked Kalidasa, Asti kaschit vagvishesh, which literally means, what's the speciality of your speech? This hurt Kalidasa like a spear pierced through his heart. He went for penance into a temple of Kali, and for his penance he was rewarded with one boon. He asked for being the most intelligent and most literate person in the estate, and he was blessed with that boon. So, with these three words, Asti, Kaschit, and Vagvishesh, he started his three major texts. Another idea about Kalidasa is that he was a man of Himalayas. In his texts, Meghadutam, Abhigyanshakuntalam, and Kumarasambhavam, the vivid beauty of Kashmir and the Himalayas has been described multiple times. In Meghadutam, he also describes the cultivation of saffron, which is typical to Kashmir. This makes us believe that he was at least a person who had traveled to Kashmir or had lived in Kashmir for a limited span of time. Another fable posits the idea that he was one of the court poets of Vikramaditya. King Vikramaditya of Ujjain had his 9 jewels, out of which Kalidasa was one. The text titled Vikram Urvashiyam also indicates in that direction. However, we are not certain because there were several King Vikramadityas in history, and it is very difficult that out of 9 court poets of Vikramaditya, none other are evident. A theory by Srinivasa and Narayan Shastri Sharyar presents that there were 3 Kalidasas, that the works that are present to us today were written by multiple people with the same name. The first Kalidasa described by them is the Kalidas of Matrigupta, who wrote 3 plays. Second one is Medhrudra, who wrote 2 epics and 1 poem. And the third is the Kalidas of Katijit, who wrote 1 poem. However, it is debatable that the 3 Kalidasas had the same quality of writing and same skill of literature. The Sinhala tradition of Sri Lanka carries an idea that there was a man, Kalidasa, who served the Ceylon king Kumaradasa. King Kumaradasa asked his courtiers to complete a line written on a wall, and Kalidasa was the first person to do it. Unfortunately, another courtier wanted to take credit for the completion of that line, due to which he murdered Kalidasa. Thus, this was considered the end of Kalidas. Even if we consider Kalidasa as a single person, it is difficult to mark at what places during what time of his life he stayed. So it is possible that he migrated from place to place in service of different kings, writing all the works he wrote. It is for sure that he was born in Kashmir, because much of the vivid beauty which is described in Kashmir is not something that one can witness in a span of a couple of years or even a decade. It would definitely need a long time to observe the beauty of Kashmir in that depth. Kalidasa was brought up in Kashmir, and then he migrated to the court of Vikramaditya, which is in Ujjain. From there, he migrated to his second court, which was in Orissa, or the Kalinga dynasty. In the Kalinga dynasty, he served the king Hemangad, whom he describes in his texts Raghuvamsha. And then he migrated to the Sinhala region, that is Sri Lanka, where he was murdered. There are certain estimated dates which describe Kalidasa in the chronology of time. Bharvi in 634 AD mentions Kalidasa in Aihole inscription. Bana in Harshachitra praises Kalidasa's skill as a poet. In the Gupta period, which is between 300 and 500 AD, it is seen that there were mentions of Kalidasa's name. And then there is a traditional date which is 57 BC as described by Jyoti Vidhabran. His oeuvre is divided into three categories. The first category is Mahakavya or the epic poems. The second category is Khandak Kavya or the minor poems, and the third is Natak or the plays. The Mahakavya are Kumarasambhava and Raghuvamsha. The Khandak Kavyas are Ritusamhara and Meghaduta, and the plays or the Natakas are Malvikagnimitra, Vikramorvashya and Abhigyanshakuntalam. The first of his epic poems is titled Kumarasambhava, which literally means the birth of a son. It describes how Tarakasura, a demon, defeated several gods in heaven and brought the heaven to the verge of collapse. Tarakasura had a boon that he would only be killed by Lord Shiva's son. Shiva, who had lost Sati, had no prospects of marriage until Parvati, a reincarnation of Sati, won his favor with a lot of penance. Amidst a lot of Shringaras, the amorous relation of Shiva and Sati bears a son, Kartikeya, who kills Tarakasura and saves heaven. The next of the epic poems is Raghuvamsha. As the name suggests, it is a poetic narration of the Raghu dynasty starting from King Dilipa to King Agnivarna, including Lord Rama and Dhritarashtra. It describes various deeds of gallantry and recreation performed by various kings, thus glorifying the lineage of the Raghu dynasty. The epic also emphasizes the concept of dharma, which has always been the central concern of the classical practitioners. It is divided into 19 cantos and is the longer of the Kalidasa's two epics. Amongst the minor poems, Ritusamhara is the first. It literally means a compilation of seasons. It describes the 6 seasons of India, namely Grishma, which is summer, Varsha, which is monsoon, Sarad, which is autumn, Hemant, that is cool, Sirisa, that is winter, Vasant, that is spring, and in 6 cantos, these are described respectively. The work is a celebration of the climate of India, which seems to give the flora and fauna of India a distinct experience of pleasure and placidity. This minor poem is full of Shringaras, which determines the overall go-through of India's climate. The next work was Meghaduta, which means the cloud messenger. It's a poem of 120 stanzas which elaborates Yaksa's plea to a cloud to carry his message to his wife at Alaka on Mount Kailash. Yaksa is a subject of King Kuber, the god of wealth, and is exiled for not tending to his duties. During the exile, he yearns to deliver his love to his wife and somehow convinces a cloud to bear his message of love on its journey to the Himalayas. The poem is an epitome of Sandesh Kavya and is written in a meter called Mandakranta. Amongst the plays of Kalidasa, Malvikagnimitra is the foremost. The title Malvikagnimitra is comprised of the names Malvika and Agnimitra, who are the major characters of this play. It is a comic romance telling the story of King Agnimitra, the emperor of Vidisha, and Malvika, a handmaid of Queen Dharani. Agnimitra falls in love with Malvika and is prevented by the queen and her other maids from seeing her. The king and his clever jester still manage to sneak away and arrange romantic encounters between the two until it is revealed that Malvika is in fact the princess of a neighboring estate. The play ends with the king announcing their marriage. The next work is Vikramorvashiyam. The meaning of Vikramorvashiyam is Urvashi won by valor. The story is about a nymph named Urvashi who was saved by King Pururava from an abduction by a demon. Pururava and Urvashi fell in love, but Urvashi was summoned back to heaven. A love-stricken Pururava spends sleepless nights before Urvashi finally unites with him after being banished from heaven and suffering a lot of mishaps on earth. The story is taken from Rig Veda and is adapted into a play with subtle changes. The last play was Abhigyanshakuntalam, or The Recognition of Shakuntala. It describes how King Dushyanta falls in love with the hermit's daughter, Shakuntala, who then commences a Gandharva marriage. Dushyanta gives Shakuntala a ring as a symbol of love. Due to a curse by a sage named Durvasa, Shakuntala is forgotten by Dushyanta until she presents a token of memory. Shakuntala loses the ring in a river and is thus unable to prove her marriage to Dushyanta. Feeling betrayed and ashamed, she retires to her mother and is discovered later by Dushyanta when their son Bharata reminds Dushyanta of his marriage to Shakuntala. Kalidasa was not only a poet or a writer of the classical age, but he also represents the poetic spirit of India from the classical era. Many modern poets have sought inspiration and methodical experience from Kalidasa's writings. He inspires the mystical and romantic writing of modern India, which is aptly reflected in the writings of Sri Rabindranath Tagore. He set the standard forms of writings, including the 5-act plays and poetic meters such as Mandakranta. Thank you for watching my lecture. Hope to see you next time.